Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of the Coal Scene. There's an awful lot going on as we approach the winter months here, both in state government and around the coal industry. And we're very fortunate to be joined here today on the program by Jeff Kessler, our newly elected Senate President. Over the course of the past year, Senator Kessler, now President Kessler, has been serving as a number of our state elected officials in an acting capacity. But as of yesterday, he was elected by his colleagues on a unanimous vote to serve as our next Senate President and thus our second Lieutenant Governor. President Kessler, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chris. It's good to be here.
Well, thanks so much for taking time. I know it's a busy time for you. There's an awful lot going on upstairs, downstairs.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of changes, and first of all, on behalf of coal and for that matter the state, congratulations. New leadership, new times.
Well,
and
I'm optimistic and I'm bullish on this state, and I'm bullish on this our opportunities to really do some good things here. West Virginia's got some great opportunities, and we can get into that a little more later, but you know as well as I do that the driving force of our economy is energy, and we are sitting on the mother lode of it here in West Virginia. So we're going to continue to foster a governmental involvement and cooperative effort and work together with both the industry and the people of the state to create good opportunities here.
Well, as with our newly elected governor, you also bring a wealth of experience, into your new capacity, and it's somewhat new because you've been in an acting position here for the past 12 months.
Yeah, as you know, Chris, we've gone through a bunch of changes here in state government, starting when Senator Byrd died in June of 2010, and obviously there was a special election for his seat. Governor Manchin won that, moved up. President Tomlin moved over, became the acting governor. I then was elected by my peers in the Senate to be the acting president. But as of Monday, the governor was sworn in after his election and lost his acting title, and yesterday I lost mine. The acting president, as you know, was just a temporary position. I was the first and only acting president in the history of the state, and probably will only be under those unusual circumstances. But I was chosen to preside over the Senate during the period where President Tomlin was acting as governor downstairs and carrying out the duties of the governor. So I've been doing that since January, so I don't, I've held the gavel, I've presided over the body, and nothing will really change in terms of that. So I've got a year under my belt already, even though I'm officially the president as of yesterday. I've been carrying out the duties for going on a year. So I know how it works, having been in the legislature now and the Senate for 14 years, so I've got a pretty good handle and grasp of how to procedurally how to operate the Senate and the strengths and weaknesses of each of the members. So we're going to make sure that we work with the governor, our colleagues in the House, to try to put out good legislation that's going to improve West Virginia, improve our standing in the country, and also to create opportunities for jobs and employment and growth here in the state.
Just reflecting back again, just as yesterday, a year ago, you were chosen
Sure.
by your colleagues and fellow Senate members to serve in the acting capacity.
Right.
And again, that doesn't just happen. You earn that respect, and based on your qualification and experience in the Senate chamber and throughout your long-standing career in public office.
Well, you're correct. I've been in the Senate for 14 years. Actually, my birthday's tomorrow. I turn
Happy birthday.
56, by the way. And my oldest son born on the 17th of November, and I was sworn into office on November 17th, 1997, on his 8th birthday. He's 22, so that tells you how long I've been doing this now. But in any event, You know, I've been in the Senate for 14 years. I've served on the Energy Industry Mining Committee, Banking and Insurance Committee, GovOrg Committee, was chair of the Judiciary Committee for 8 years since 2003, one of the two major committees in the Senate. So I've had an opportunity to have my finger close to the pulse of the Senate for some time, and had the privilege as well working under the capable leadership of Earl Ray Tomblin as Senate President, and learned a lot just from observing, you know, how he worked and ran things, and it was a good experience. But we're prepared to take the gavel. Times change. He's moved up and I've moved up, and that's one of the beauties, even though we've had a lot of changes and faces of who's holding the gavel and who's sitting behind the desk in what office. The beauty of our democracy is that, you know, government continued to function, and function, I think, very efficiently. You know, during this period of what people consider great political turmoil and changes and elections and 4 elections in 2 years or 1 year or whatever, during that period of time, you know, our state of West Virginia continued to function well. We reduced and eliminated taxes. We got the taxes on the business taxes coming down. We eliminated the food tax. You know, we've passed legislation that will improve set the framework for you know, more investment in the state. So we've done good things, and even though there was, you know, perceived political unrest or turmoil or change, you know, we continued to function and continued to work. And that's, you know, some countries, when something happens to a leader, there's a anarchy and a riot. You know, here it was orderly, democracy worked, and the government continued to work in state government, and we really did good things. You know, during that period of time, we've had $300 million surpluses. You know, our bond rating has gone up, the federal government rating's gone down, West Virginia's going up. You know, we have not borrowed 1 cent, even though we have unemployment in this state, and it's higher than we want. If you look at the other states around us, they have had to borrow billions with a B, dollars from the federal government to pay their unemployment claims. We haven't had to borrow 1 red cent because we were proactive in raising the threshold a little bit on some of the employer and employee payments, so that when that first I think it was $9,000 a year up to 12, but with a trigger that it will ultimately come back down, but we won't have to borrow a dime. The beauty of that is, though, Chris, is then when it comes time, when folks are starting, as we come out of this recession, look to where are we going to open that new plant, where are we going to do some expansion, where are we going to want to locate business. They're going to look around and say West Virginia's unemployment compensation rates are significantly lower than our competing states, because when some of these competing states had to borrow billions of dollars, their base rates might be similar to ours, but they've got to add on top of that a surcharge to pay back the feds. So we're going to have a lower unemployment tax rate, we're going to have a competitive workers' comp rate, and we've got something what everybody needs, and that's an abundant supply of energy here. Our bond rating is very good. The cost of, therefore, borrowing is going to be lower for governmental entities here for projects of that nature. So we're really poised, I think, to really break away from the pack as we come through this, because, as I mentioned earlier, we still have what everybody needs, and that's energy, both in the abundance of the coal and the coal seams and the abundant supply of coal we have in this state, as well as you know, the Marcellus opportunities are before us.
Well, both of those industries and energies are very prominent in your area of the state.
Oh, absolutely. And
Marshall County, Ohio County, a lot of things going on there. I know there's you know, a couple of the largest, most secure mining operations, underground operations you'll find anywhere in the world.
You know,
right
I
there.
believe McElroy Coal Mine in Marshall County, there in Moundsville, right outside of Moundsville, is right in my backyard, and it's you know, the largest deep mine in the country, I believe. You know, they've had a significant investment at the Shoemaker Mine with replace their old rail haulage line with a belt line here not long ago. There's been significant investment of hundreds of millions of dollars by Consol Energy up in our neck of the woods, is a major player and a good corporate citizen, and has done an excellent job in providing steady employment, a solid tax both, and when working well with governmental officials when issues confront us all. So it's been a win-win. And I still tell folks that at the end of the day, you know, people can say whatever they want about coal and clean coal or whatever, but at the end of the day, for the next several decades, you know, I assure you that there is no other alternative, reliable source of energy other than coal to meet the base load energy needs of this country. So it's going to have a continued future in this state and certainly in my region.
Well, Governor Manchin, no question, was a very outspoken advocate of the coal and energy business. Governor Tomblin, is as well. And you know, I know that you've also been in your former capacity, well, in your capacity within the state senate, you've also been a pretty strong advocate of energy. I recall the last national convention. I believe it was on the floor of that convention when you took to the podium and talked about the importance of coal to the state of West Virginia and our economy here.
And it is not only to the state as well. It provides, you know, employment and a reliable tax base as well. But you know, it also provides, like I said, the 60%, as everyone knows watching this show, 60% of our base load power energy capacity for the state, or for the country, excuse me, not the state. So I've joked to you, I know, from time to time that, you know, folks that complain about coal and all the, I said, you know what we ought to do is shut down all the power plants on Super Bowl Sunday weekend and watch everybody squeal in 60% of the countries. Please turn our televisions back on. They don't realize the importance of what we do in West Virginia to keep the lights on for you, literally. So, and I'm confident it can be done cleanly and environmentally sound manner and with respect for the environment and the surrounding communities. I mean, it can be done.
Well, and I think as a state we're a pretty good example of demonstrating that. Yeah. I know just from, you know, being around the Capitol myself a good bit, there's an equal amount, or perhaps even a greater emphasis on the mine safety programs that we have, and on the environmental quality programs as well, and typically all those things are factored into any major policy decision or any major legislation that goes through this building. Yeah,
and you know, that was one of my major complaints and gripes about the cap and trade bill. I think, as I told you, I thought the way the thing was drafted initially was just, it's set up where coal was an absolute loser from the way it was set up. Had no chance to compete. You give West Virginia and our industries an ability to compete with the same tax credits, research and development tax credits, and other things that they would give, and we'll only compete. We'll eat their lunch. So we can do well. We can compete on a level playing field, you know. But the way that bill was drafted in the past, it said, you know, wind wins, solar wins, this wins, what, you know, hydro wins, coal. You don't even get in the game. You don't even get in the game. That it wasn't fair. That was not right. You give the same type of incentives for, you know, production of clean coal technologies, research and development, and things of that nature, because of the abundance we have of the supply we have. You know, we can make it work. There's no way you can have enough windmills to keep the nation's lights on for you.
No, and you'll find that, you know, the coal industry generally embraces development of all of our fuels, including wind and solar.
Sure.
And certainly Marcellus gas, natural gas. You know, even embrace, you know, those that really delve in this and develop expertise claim that we're going to need every unit of power from every imaginable source going forward, because our power demands do increase.
Yep.
Right now we're exporting, you know, we're the leading exporting state. We're shipping West Virginia coal around the world because of its quality and heat BTU values.
Right.
You know, some of the finest coal found anywhere in the world comes from right here in southern West Virginia for steel manufacturing. And you know, I saw a figure not too long ago where West Virginia Power, the coal that we export as well as the electricity that we export, accounts for a little over 40% of all the power on the East Coast, and that's from Maine to Fort Lauderdale.
Wow.
And that's
huge.
It's a huge amount.
Yeah. You try to replace that, it would be impossible. It would absolutely be impossible. So, you know, we'll continue to work with the industry as in my administration as Senate President, to make sure that we, you know, embrace technologies that can help advance not only production but safeguarding the environment. I believe it can be a win-win for all of us.
Well, you mentioned, you know, about the West Virginia being one of 4 or 5 states that finished in its budget year in the black, and you know, I'm still not sure everyone really realizes that out there. Yeah. You know, you always tend to want more from your government than what you receive, but it's been really significant, and in large part due to the you know, the increased tax base and the increase amount of severance
Yeah.
taxes that are being
severance
produced,
taxes
we are in a strong energy market.
Absolutely. This energy sector has been a very strong, vital component of the state's tax revenue base. So it's a vital part. So it provides essential services and essential dollars so those in government can provide essential services. You're exactly right. While other states have been laying off individuals during this recession, have laid off teachers, laid off nurses, laid off, closed hospitals, had to release prisoners from jails they couldn't keep. They couldn't pay to keep them incarcerated, for goodness sakes. West Virginia hasn't laid off one worker or had any furloughs. And in fact, we even gave them a raise last year. So, while in tough economic times, we've done well. We've maintained that a surplus, and we're in many respects, from fiscal standpoint, the envy of many of our competing states. And if you look at those that are doing well, it's the North Dakotas, us, Wyoming, those that are producing energy. And that's why I'm so bullish on West Virginia's future, not only with the necessity and the abundance of coal that we still have here in the state to provide that base load energy need, but also the Marcellus opportunities that are going to also be a potential huge player in the state's future as well. It's an opportunity, I think, to create real growth and opportunity and wealth for the people of the state. And that's what it's all about.
Can't beat that. That's what that should be a shared objective.
Absolutely.
By all. I know when you first came to the Senate, you said it was 14 years ago already.
Oh, wow.
That's hard to believe. That's I
had a lot more hair back then.
Well, absolutely, and I know there was a lot of tough issues. We were dealing with blasting and coal trucks on the roads, and I think the fact the way they were handled was done in such a way that most of the problems were addressed.
Yeah, responsible, and a government isn't there to choke. Shouldn't be there to choke industry.
Mm-hmm.
Should be there to help form a cooperative coalition between the communities, the people, and the industries to let them both coexist, so that they can do so in a reasonable manner. I mean, it's the same thing that's going on with, some of the complaints initially I've heard with the gas, the Marcellus gas over in some of my counties, Wetzel and Marshall, where it was initially starting before it hit throughout some of the rest of the state. And the people were complaining about the size of the trucks, the overweight trucks, the damage to the roads. A lot of the same things were addressed when, with the overweight coal truck issue that was prevalent down in southern West Virginia. And we addressed it with, created a system of highways, with the coal highway bill. Resource highway.
Yeah.
So, I introduced, modeled on that just 2 years ago, the natural gas resource highway bill that was modeled after what we did with coals, because I found out that if you got the citizens who have complaints and you have a forum for them to be, their issues to be addressed, for the company to hear them, to try to work together to work out their differences and to set up scheduling times and dedicate certain roads that would be used for certain purposes. And no one just likes to get behind a truck and sit there for 3 hours to get into town to buy a gallon of milk. But if you say, hey, this road's going to be used for this and this one's not, or we're going to run these loads in convoys that run out there from 2 in the morning till 6 in the morning, so they're not interfering with school buses and people getting back and forth to work. They can work out solutions, and that's what government needs to do.
Well, and you've mastered the art of facilitating those forums and processes to reach that desired result where everybody feels like they gain. Well, and I know the mining companies, and I'm sure the oil and gas companies, they realize that some of those programmatic issues you just have to be realistic about. You have to respond to some of those concerns and issues that are raised by citizen groups.
Well, just given West Virginia's topography, we're in the areas where people are living, and oftentimes are close to the area where the production or the drilling or the mining activity is going to occur. So you just try to give people notice of when it's going to happen and try to work out solutions that they can live with. People, I've always found that don't even mind being told no, but they hate being ignored. If they think you've got a complaint and no one will even listen to you, but if you say, here's the problem, it's going to go on, and we hate it's going to happen, but it's going to last for 6 months,
Right,
18 months,
right.
but it's going to be over, and then your road will be restored. And a lot of times people can say, I can live with that, but just don't tell me I'm going to have to live the rest of my life like that. And if you sit down and explain to them the process, give them information, and tell them how it's going to work, and if you're taking some of their land, they're compensated fairly. I've found most of the times that it works out.
Thinking, there's great examples of that up your way with again Consol Energy
Sure.
and Alliance Coal's coming in, and when you think of where those companies and mining operations are located, I mean they're virtually just a couple miles from downtown Wheeling, downtown Moundsville,
Right.
and the case of Alliance, they're just outside of Ogilvy Park,
Right.
and you really don't know they're there.
Yeah.
When issues come up, they respond to them quickly, and
You do, and that's what it's all about. So I mean, that's what's important is to have good public relations and to have good people relations, and be accessible when folks have a concern. And I've yet to, any of the companies I deal with, we've called or whatever and said there's a problem, usually not had somebody try to get it addressed, get the constituents involved, get them talking, and pretty soon you can get it resolved.
One of the things that come out of all the initial controversy over mountaintop mining was the creation of the Coalfield Development Office,
Sure.
which is in existence today. And although went through a couple of some initial hurdles and some stumbling around, they have really evolved over the past few years, making a difference out there with post-mine land. They're coordinating a lot of activity, and when you look around the state today at some of the sites, some of the commercial and recreational facilities that are on former mine sites, it's truly amazing. I mean, we're becoming a lot better at planning with county officials and local development groups, and the Office of Coalfield Development's coordinating a lot of that activity between the land company, the mining company, and local and regional
Exactly.
development offices.
Yeah, and that was an excellent concept, and I think it's paying dividends now. I know several of my senators, particularly those from the southern coal fields, Senator Browning, Senator Stallings, have been big proponents of that. And we did some stuff again this year with the coal severance tax, dedicating additional portion of that money back to the counties of origin where the coal was mined, to help particularly those that are producing the coal to have some additional monies back into their local economies to hopefully maybe diversify their economies and create other opportunities. And part of the biggest problem in most of southern West Virginia is the lack of flat land, lack of developable land. So it helps to coordinate with that office at least a master plan in many ways to help to diversify the economy, create other opportunities in conjunction with the mining that's going on for the betterment and future of the state.
Well, we appreciate all that you've been doing and your involvement, and look forward working with the legislature going forward. Last year, you sponsored a couple real significant pieces of I want to say legislation. I think it was a resolution that urged the U.S. EPA to reconsider their decision on vetoing the Spruce Mine
Right.
permit. And that was dynamic. That was, I think that action being communicated to EPA. Not sure it caused them to reverse their position, but they heard you at least.
Well, I've always felt on that issue that you don't give and then take away. You got to have predictability in government. You have to have predictability in regulatory oversight. And one of the problems as I hear is, the distinction between how permits are processed and applied out of the Philadelphia office and perhaps the Atlanta office. And if you have two different criteria, and I believe, some of the states are regulated by Atlanta or by Philadelphia, and they're using applying the rules one way, same rules, different ways, and to our detriment, that's wrong. And when you give something, you don't take it away. You need predictability in government. You have regulatory framework that is fair and regulations that are fair, and they need to be applied even-handedly, regardless of what region of the country you may live in. And if you have a more aggressive either regulatory office in one that applies and interprets a different way than another, I mean, it creates a disadvantage certainly to West Virginia, and I think that was unfair.
Well, that matter is being litigated at the current time. and former Governor Manchin and now Governor Tomlin, who's maintained one of the legal issues,
Right.
the lawsuit that was filed under Governor Manchin against EPA for basically imposing a whole new set of standards for mining. And they found that EPA has encroached, in a questionable fashion into state rights as it relates to water quality. So all that's continuing forward through the legal channels.
And we'll see how that all plays out. But I'm confident that West Virginia, with an appropriate Department of Environmental protection agency, can take care of many of the issues that are facing the coal industry, and we can do it properly and adequately.
Switching gears just a little bit, we got a couple minutes left. What do you see on the horizon? What's the big legislative issues
Well, there's a
coming
couple of things I think, Chris, we're going to be looking at this session. Obviously, we've had that select committee on the Marcellus. I think it's important to get a regulatory framework in place that it's fair, that's reasonable, that fosters investment and opportunities and jobs and taxes and all the things that come with it, but also the good things, but also to make sure that it takes care of the damage to the roads, the water quality, the environment, protect the surface owners whose property might be disturbed during the activity, things of that nature. I think that's huge, because if we can capture some of those opportunities and some of those tax dollars, then that will create opportunities to do other things, such as pay down our OPEB debt. That's another big one. If we can get that OPEB, which is other post-employment benefits, the cost of future retirement and health benefits particularly, paid for and cut in half by controlling medical inflation and other things, and we can get that paid off, then I think our state's last piece of our financial puzzle will be in place. And given all the other good things we've talked about with surplus, rainy day fund being at the bond rating going up, all the other things that we've talked about a little bit earlier, I think West Virginia is really poised to do some good things. But education and workforce development are huge. Over the last couple of decades, you grew up in Wheeling, and I was just down the road in McMecken, and so many of the young folks that we grew up with had to leave the area. I mean, they talk a lot about our outsourcing of our resources, our coal, our gas, and other things going out of state, but our most precious resource that we've had that has left the state's been our young people and our kids. And I hear so many folks saying, well, we don't like all these folks coming in from Texas and Oklahoma and North Carolina to come here and work here. Well, the flip side of that is, hey, one of the problems we have is we don't have enough people in this state. So what's wrong if they come here and move here? Good people